The first part of this video uses the massive 2019 fires in Australia to illustrate some of the extreme costs that occur as the result of serious droughts. The second part of this video offers a way to increase rainfall to combat these droughts and turn arid regions into productive and valuable areas. The fires in Australia are some of the worst in recent history, but other areas of the world are also suffering from fires that are fueled by increased temperatures and prolonged droughts. Some economists have estimated that the costs of the 2019 Australian fires will be as much as $700 billion US. This cost is important to take into consideration when considering the costs of making changes that will reduce the likelihood of wildfires in the future. Of course, the total cost will never be known for sure because it is so difficult to know the long-term consequences of the fires and the costs of all the indirect losses. In terms of indirect losses, it's estimated that as many as 1 billion animals may die in the Australian fires. And it's hard to put a dollar value on this type of loss. One of the things driving these fires is global warming and the resulting droughts. As vegetation dries out, it becomes a dangerous fuel for fire. The evidence for this is especially dramatic in Australia. This chart provides just one example of the massive amount of evidence that climate change is really happening. The overwhelming number of climate and environmental scientists agree that warming of the climate is occurring and that it is a serious and very time-sensitive problem. More water in the right places will help to solve many environmental and global warming problems. Therefore, the focus of this video is to raise awareness concerning the benefits of moving massive amounts of seawater inland in order to increase much-needed rainfall in arid environments. Additional rainfall will result from the increased evaporation that will form clouds and eventually cause rain to fall in many areas that greatly need it. A nearly perfect place to move this seawater is Lake Eyre. Lake Eyre is usually dry, hot, and it's below sea level. Being below sea level, water would naturally flow into it if a sea level canal from the ocean were built. This chart shows the basic cycle of water evaporation, condensation into clouds, and finally precipitation as rain. This cycle in southern Australia will be greatly accelerated by the filling of Lake Eyre. For 5 months out of the year, the average high temperature in this region is 90 degrees Fahrenheit or higher. This, of course, is just the right environment to maximize the rate of water evaporation. When water is present, this image of the lake is typical of its very shallow depth. This shallow depth makes it easy for the water to heat up and thus increase the rate of evaporation. At its deepest point, the lake is only 49 feet deep. The basic idea of filling Lake Eyre is not new. Plans for doing this go all the way back to 1883. In the past, these plans were ultimately judged to be unworkable. However, changing environmental conditions, more advanced technology, and more sophisticated engineering make the project much more practical now. This map shows that when full, Lake Eyre would cover 3,668 square miles. It was once thought that a sea level route to Lake Eyre would take a shortcut through Lake Torrens. It was later determined that Lake Torrens was actually 98 feet above sea level. Pumping up to Lake Torrens could still be done, but it would probably not be cost effective. This image shows that Lake Eyre sits in a very large and shallow basin. Any rain that would fall in this basin would support vegetation, add to groundwater reserves, evaporate, or eventually drain back into the lake. This image clearly shows the difference that water makes when it is added to an arid landscape like the one around Lake Eyre. In addition to the more obvious benefits of increased rainfall, there may be other advantages. For example, the pink color in these waters of Lake Eyre is the result of algae, and serious research is now being done on using algae as a biofuel. This map shows a proposed sea level route from the ocean to Lake Eyre. It would be about 260 miles long. To show that a 260-mile long aqueduct could be built, here is a section of the 444-mile-long California aqueduct. The California Water Project includes numerous pumping stations that include one that has to pump water up almost 2,000 feet to get it over some mountains. The aqueduct to Lake Eyre would be much shorter, and it wouldn't need any pumping stations at all. After the lake is filled with seawater, the next step would be to evaluate the benefits of the projected increase in rainfall. If there is a substantial increase in rainfall, it would make sense to explore additional means to speed up the evaporation process. For example, turning water into a mist to speed up evaporation is already an available technology. Another possibility is to heat up water to increase evaporation. This could be done by using mirrors to focus the rays of the sun onto the surface of the water. Using mirrors to heat water is already being done to create steam that turns turbines to produce electricity. In fact, billions of dollars have already been spent on this technology. Both the water misters and the mirrors would be best positioned along the open sections of the canal leading from the ocean to the lake. Positioning them along the canal, these devices wouldn't be affected if the lake level rose above sea level. Additional evaporation will naturally occur when the lake level rises due to increased rain runoff in the lake basin, and also periodic flooding from major monsoons that hit northern Australia. Even rising sea levels due to global warming will automatically cause the lake level to rise. If water levels in the lake were to rise above sea level, water flow in the canal would become reversed and water would flow back towards the ocean. Now, this could be beneficial for a while to help flush out lake water that had become saturated with high levels of salt. But whether the flushing of the lake was desirable or not should be up to the experts to determine. In any case, there should be a mechanism so the flow of the canal can be regulated. By closing the canal inflow during periods of high natural inflow from other sources, the level of the lake can rise above sea level and extend even further out over the flat floodplain. This resulting greater surface area of the lake would further increase evaporation and ultimately create even more rainfall. When the inflow to the lake from the ocean is either reduced or stopped, ocean water can still be released into other areas along the path of the canal. Multiple diversion canals or tunnels could be installed along the main canal where the surrounding land is either at sea level or below. Valves would then regulate the release of this water. Massive increased evaporation could create a recurring cycle of evaporation and rain that grows ever larger and larger. It's possible that a lake much larger than the sea level lake could eventually emerge. The engineering knowledge and equipment is available to build a sea level canal to Lake Eyre. However, two additional things are necessary to get it done. First is the money. The money will only become available if experts in many fields can reasonably show that the potential benefits justify the cost. Next, there must be the political will to get it done. Building such a canal would be a bold, expensive, and difficult project, but its potential for dramatically improving the environment is at least worth additional serious research into its feasibility.